welcome to the Doctor's Corner. I'm your host, as always, Dr. Mark Pinsky, and today we're going to talk about a very special topic called MTHFR, methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase. Pretty cool,
It's a mouthful.
Huh? That was pretty cool.
It's a mouthful.
Now it sounds and looks like it's a dirty word.
I was going to say that.
But it's not a dirty word, but it has nasty implications. So let's talk a little bit about what MTHFR is before I bring my guest along to talk to you about her experience with MTHFR. MTHFR, as I said, is a gene, right? So that gene we know is responsible for over 250 processes in the human body. Everything from your mood to your hormones to DNA synthesis, RNA synthesis, and we could go on and on. But the two really important things are probably its role in cardiovascular disease and its role in miscarriage or spontaneous abortion. Those are things that we know for sure that we could do something about. So what's involved? Well, we know they've identified two different parts of that gene, what we call alleles, right? C677T and A1298C. Both of those alleles, if you get a variant or a mutation to that gene in those areas, it can have a tremendous impact on your life. So one of the things we look for, and I'm not going to go through the homozygous and heterozygous because it's going to confuse me and then I'm going to look like an idiot. So depending upon the severity of the gene, the more likely you are to have complications related to that gene. Okay, fair enough?
Yes, excellent.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So one of the things I'm going to talk to you about today with Sandi is her own experience with that mutation. And then I will sort of interject a little bit about why I believe she had her experiences. Of course, she already knows that. But I'm going to introduce Sandi Melkonian to you, who is a patient of mine, a dear patient of mine, who is my little COVID buddy. During COVID, she was my savior. She made chicken soup for me. It was delicious, and she was wonderful. Delivered it to my house. She was wonderful. Amazing. Anyway, Sandi, tell us a little bit about yourself so that they have an idea of who you are.
Okay. I'm not really sure what you want to know. Well, I'm married. I have 2 daughters and 5 grandchildren. I have a master's degree in cell and molecular biology. I came upon the MTHFR gene quite by happenstance. The way it ended up working was when I was married years ago, I had a couple of miscarriages, and I thought that was odd. But I didn't think much of it other than, hey, this is the way things go. My father had atherosclerosis, and when he was in his 40s, he had his leg amputated. And when he was in his 50s, he died. But he didn't have a good, healthy lifestyle. Right. He was a pilot in the military. He smoked, he drank, he cussed, whatever. He did it. You know, that's just how my dad, even after his leg amputated, he was very active constantly. My grandfather had many heart attacks, and eventually one killed him when he was 70. So there definitely was that history of cardiovascular issues, you know. So fast forward to my oldest daughter, when she was in her 20s, she was trying to get pregnant, and she'd had 7 miscarriages. And she was also bipolar. And actually, it was the bipolar that led her doctor to looking into whether or not she had the MTHFR mutation. None of us knew about this at this point. And at this point, I was in graduate school in cell and molecular biology, but I'd really never heard of it. So he tested her. She got so lucky. I'm going to say it was divine intervention because it was in the middle of nowhere in Montana. And this specialist said, you've got bipolar and you've had 7 miscarriages. Please let me test you. Now, she already had one child by then, but the weird thing about that is when she was pregnant with her oldest daughter, she would buy, I'm not kidding you, platefuls of parsley from Walmart. Platefuls. She would clean them out.
Okay,
every day.
so let's stop there. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the reason why that's an important little tidbit is parsley, green leafy vegetable, is high in folate. And so we're going to talk a little bit about why folate's important here a little bit, but that's a very big clue. Keep going. You're doing good.
And she just craved it.
Right.
She just craved it. So they would laugh at her when she came into Walmart because she'd clean them out every single day, and she ate and ate and ate. I'm positive that's why she retained that pregnancy, because in addition to that, she had some other issues like an incompetent cervix that created other problems. Okay. So he discovered that she had both mutations on both
You
genes.
can say it. Go ahead.
Okay. She was homozygous for both mutations, which is really a bad,
That's a bad apple
a
right
bad
there.
card, right? But it explained a lot of things. Okay. Then
That
fast
means
forward.
technically, she shouldn't have been born, correct?
Yeah.
Because the chances of survival on that is like it shouldn't happen.
Yes, exactly.
Okay,
It was
that's it.
is really, I mean, again, I think divine intervention.
Of course.
So, all right. So then we find out about it. Well, then when I was in graduate school, I had an accident, and I was, well, let me backtrack.
Right.
When I worked at TGI Fridays as a bartender, putting myself through school, one day when I was at work, now mind you, I weighed 106 pounds. I ran 10 miles a day. I never drank or smoked. I ate healthy, even before healthy was really noticed as healthy. And one day I had a stroke at work. I felt this little explosion in my head, and I didn't know what was wrong, and went to the hospital, and they're like, well, yeah, you've had a stroke. Now, I got lucky because, for your audience out there, I'm just going to say it wasn't in a part of the brain that really affected anything other than I was exhausted and I was foggy, but that was it. And I recovered. But it was weird that I should have had that. And it occurred to me, my father had this, my grandfather, what's going, and my mom also had lots of miscarriages, and so did my other sister. So I could see, so anyway, fast forward now to finding out about Destiny. I'm like, my oldest daughter who has mutations, and my other daughter also has got them. So we find out about that, and of course then I got tested, and I'm like, well, it makes sense now. Now I know why I was perfectly healthy and had a stroke. I mean, I was lucky because it could have gone so much worse. But now I understand why, with the mutations that we have and the ones that I passed down, and perhaps maybe her biological father did. He's never been tested. I don't know. Now I understand that because it's so important. Of course, the doctor that she saw told her about L-methylfolate. Right. And then when I had that accident in graduate school, I was electrocuted, and it was bad, but I'm here to talk about
Amen.
it. And when I went to the doctors, no offense here, Mark.
She loves coming to the doctor.
I do. But, especially workman's comp docs, okay? They are pill pushers. Here, have anti-seizure, have anti-this, have anti-that. Everything they gave me but antibiotics. Everything was anti-that. And painkillers. And when I'm talking opioid painkillers, I'm still in graduate school. How do you expect me to function? So I did a little research, because that's my area, and found that, this is also involved in the pain pathways. And it makes precursors that can be involved in pain control. So I spoke to my doctor, my workman's comp doctor, and said, hey, I don't want to take these pain medicines anymore, but I want to take this. And at the time, you couldn't get it over the counter. It was prescription, and it was $900 a month.
Holy crow.
Yeah. So he gave it to me, and inside of 2 months, I was off of everything, and I had much better pain control. And hey, I could actually teach and not, look like a fool, because I was cognizant, because I wasn't, drugged from what I was taking.
Right. All right. So, wow, that's a story. So let's backtrack a little bit,
Sure.
Okay? Because I think that we need to break it down for people so they understand. No, you did great. But I think it's important that they understand why and how this all comes about.
Sure.
So it's a simple cheek swab that you can obtain. We have them here in the office. It's not that difficult it's not very expensive, right? And you send it in, and they come back and they tell you what your likelihood is of having disease states related to this variant, depending upon the severity of your variant. Now, let me tell you why this is super important. Now, I'm going to try to make this as basic and as simple as I can, because it gets very complicated. Let's deal with miscarriage or spontaneous abortion. In the last 70 years, we have made no dent in the incidence, meaning the number of cases of spontaneous abortion. Still, 1/3 of all pregnancies end in miscarriage. Why? Why is that? With all the great medications we have, with all the great things we have, why have we never made a dent? Okay, I'm going to tell you why. Because it's very, very simple. When women get pregnant, they get put on
Prenatal vitamins.
prenatal vitamins. Those prenatal vitamins have?
Folate.
Don't have folate, they have folic acid.
Folic acid, that's what I
right.
meant. Folic acid.
So folic acid is synthetic. And if you have a very big MTHFR variant, you don't break down folic acid. What Sandi was pointing to was the fact that her daughter initially took in a ton of parsley. Parsley breaks down, it is folate. If it's methylated, it will break down to L-methyl folate, which is the active form. If you can't break it down into L-methylfolate, and again, probably what she had was enough of a variant that if she pushed it hard enough, she got enough L-methylfolate that she was able to overcome that.
I'm sure that's it, yeah.
Right, so I'm positive you're correct. If they just gave L-methylfolate, maybe. We don't know, but it certainly would be cool, right?
Wouldn't hurt.
Wouldn't hurt. There's really no side effect to doing it. It would be way beneficial. But instead they keep pushing the same narrative. And my goal here is to get women to get tested so they understand what their risk is. They're going to put you on prenatal vitamins anyway. They're going to put you on folic acid, which is worthless to you anyway, in my opinion. Right? So I'm a big green leafy vegetable guy anyway. It wouldn't hurt you to get forms of L-methylfolate. And we can talk about all day about the appropriate forms of L-methylfolate, where to get them, reliable places. That's for a different time. The second thing that I think people need to talk about is we talked a little about cardiovascular disease. So homocysteine is an inflammatory marker. It's highly atherogenic, which means it forms plaque. It is the number one cause of clotting, meaning strokes, meaning heart attacks, meaning clots in your legs, meaning pulmonary emboli. It's a huge marker. What we didn't know years ago was what to do with it. So we would do tests in our office, probably because they were paying for it. And then what happened was we would get back an elevated homocysteine level, and we would bring the patient in and we'd say, hey, listen, congratulations, your homocysteine level's elevated. Have a good day.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we didn't know what to do, right? But now we do know what to do. Why is that? Homocysteine gets broken down by B complex vitamins. B6, B9, B12. One of the things we didn't mention is there are some people who also are B6 deficient based on their genes. So you will also know that if you do your MTHFR, what your likelihood of that is.
Yeah.
B9 is folate, which again needs to be methylated from folate to L-methylfolate. And B12, believe it or not, needs to be converted from cyanocobalamin to methylcobalamin by the same process. What's the problem? We, and I'm embarrassed to tell you, me too, up until 2 years ago, we gave patients what? Cyanocobalamin. We give them, just go over the counter,
Yeah,
just go get it. It's not a big deal, right? So how did I learn about it? Guess who has an MTHFR variant? Me. So I was giving myself, and nothing was happening, right? Because I couldn't metabolize it. So my numbers were in the low 400s, which is now my big clue almost every single time because I check everybody for their B12 level. And if you're hanging around, even if you're over 400, which 400 is the marker for the line as to whether you're deficient or not. They'll say 200, but it's really 400. And the bottom line is, even if you're at 400, 450, 500, I'm highly suspicious that you have an MTHFR variant.
Yeah.
So I try to get people to test even then. Because injecting you with cyanocobalamin, which every single weight loss clinic in the planet wants to do, is absolutely worthless if you can't metabolize it. Besides, you're getting a form of cyanide. Why would you do that to yourself? So I'm embarrassed to tell you, but coming clean, that I did it. I did it to myself. You didn't tell me, Sandi. Shame on you.
I know, I really should have. I'm sorry, because I will tell you the truth. I've known for a long time it had to be methylated.
Right.
I don't know.
So now, the only other way to get methylation, if you want to do it by injection, you can do it, but it has to be kept refrigerated. It's expensive to do it. It's just not practical to do it. And to be honest with you, what did I prove? You don't have to do it. If you get a really high quality vitamin that's been methylated and you can get methylcobalamin, you usually do incredibly well. So I'm going to check my levels next week and I'll let you know what it is. I'm under the gun. But it's super important because if you can get B6, B9, and B12 the way you're supposed to have them in their active form, then you will break down homocysteine. And wouldn't it be great if we could reduce, I didn't say eliminate, because there's so many factors, as Sandi pointed out, right? There's smoking, there's drinking, there's poor intake, there's lack of exercise, and go on and on and on. But wouldn't it be cool if we did a study that showed that if we just gave people B complex vitamins in their methylated form, that we could reduce the incidence of cardiovascular disease?
I mean, and it would be wonderful if we could do that. But the problem is going to be what? You know where I'm going with this.
Go!
Who's going to fund this study?
Right.
Well, it isn't going to be big pharma because they only fund what they can patent. Right. And bottom line is they can't patent natural products. Right. L-methylfolate is a natural product. So there isn't going to be any research unless you and I win the lottery and we decide to fund this study. I would do that.
So here's, I probably would do that too. So here's what's interesting. This topic, MTHFR, up until 2 years ago, you didn't hear about it, but now it's gaining ground.
It is.
And you're starting to hear it. Thank goodness there's podcasts like this that are talking about MTHFR, and there are more and more, there's more and more awareness, I'll say.
There is. There's
about
more physician awareness too, because when I first told my, and you know that my doctor was wonderful, the workman's comp doctor I had is a local guy, and he was wonderful, and he was good about it. He was willing to listen to what I had to say, but any other doctor that I've ever mentioned it to is like, what? No, it's no problem. Even my sister, who I'm certain has one variant at least, maybe more,
She should.
and she's got cardiovascular problems. It doesn't matter. Anyway. When she told her cardiologist, he said, yeah, it's not a problem. I'm like,
right, that's ridiculous.
how do you not at least go, well, maybe I should go look at that.
Right.
Maybe I should see if there's an issue. And even her GP said, yeah, don't worry about it.
Yeah. So how did I first come to know about MTHFR? But there were a lot of things that happened and again, I'm a pretty spiritual guy, so I really believe that nothing happens for just happenstance.
No,
happens for the reason it's supposed to happen at exactly the time it's supposed to happen. But I had a patient who came to see me who was from Kansas, who had large depression and had been placed by her psychiatrist on helping. And I was like, and I asked her, I said, I've never heard of that. She said that he told me it would help me with my depression. So that started my interest in the whole thing. And it was really my involvement on the Science Med Advisory Board for ID Live, where I got to really go deep dive on MTHFR, which I just did a podcast on that too, for them. And to me, we are just really getting the word out and scratching the surface by what we can do. So to me, this is like super, super valuable and super important.
It really is. And something maybe you don't know, but you might, I don't know. But one of the things about MTHFR is that people who have, doesn't even really matter, but one of the mutations, I don't remember which one, but they're more susceptible to autoimmune diseases. So if you start this so much, is it 1298? Okay, so if you start it so much earlier, well, of course, both my daughters have autoimmune issues. My oldest daughter now has multiple sclerosis. Okay, well, maybe if they'd started that years ago, maybe that wouldn't have happened. I don't know. We don't have the science behind that to say that. But heck, if it doesn't hurt.
This is what I'm trying to say. So there's so much out there that we now have enough evidence that, number one, not going to hurt. Number two, it has this so much overwhelming evidence that it possibly could help, right? It's there. It's really there. So I encourage everybody to go get tested for the MTHFR to see if you have a variant and to see if, and again, your DNA is never going to change. So I encourage you to do it for your children. And I encourage your parents to do it. I encourage everybody to do it. It's not expensive. The test is probably like $85. It's not anything of great tremendous expense. And the information could save a life. So,
absolutely.
Anything else that we missed?
I can't think of anything.
I think we covered pretty much everything. Jeremy, did we miss anything?
I will tell you one thing that before I came here, I was just looking to see what the current PubMed information was on MTHFR. I was appalled.
Really?
I was appalled because a lot of the papers, and they were current papers, were saying, well, you might have these variants, but it really doesn't have much impact on your health. I'm like, okay, I know. And then you go and look at who funded that research. Yeah. Well, guess who you think funded it? Yeah. Yep, Big Pharma funded it. Yeah. Of course they want you to say that. I mean,
it's really sad.
I know you're shocked. I feel
I'm well, you know how I feel. So I am not shocked, and I think it's tragic.
It is tragic. It's tragic.
Well, for a scientist like yourself, scientists like myself, who was taught to practice clinically evidence-based medicine, to be objective, to be able to talk and argue appropriately, get your word. This is how science works. This is how science advances.
How science works,
right.
Yes.
This is how science advances. Nobody is going to be right, about everything. We're all going to have our little bits and pieces. We bring our minds together. We come up with a theory. And then we try to prove our theory, right? I mean, we've been doing this stuff. You and I have been doing this stuff since we were in 6th grade.
That's true.
Right? So to us, they've taken science and really destroyed science. So let's spread that word about getting people tested for MTHFR. And you can always contact me, and I'll contact Sandi if need be to
I'm
ask
happy
her
to
further
help
questions.
anybody.
Yeah, we appreciate
always.
that. For Sandi Melkonian, I am Dr. Mark Pinsky. You've been watching The Doctor's Corner. Thank you so much. Take care. This is Dr. Mark Pinsky once again, asking you to forward questions to us, whether regarding this episode or any of our past episodes, at drmarkscorner@gmail.com. Also, don't forget to check us out on our website, pinskywellness.com or pinskyweightloss.com. We look forward to hearing all of your questions, and we'll get back to you as soon as we do. Y'all have a great week.